Live to see it, friends, and welcome to The World Transformed. This program is your guide to an astounding future that lies ahead, one that will be here sooner than you think, and one that you have an important role to play in bringing about. At The World Transformed, we want to introduce you to what may be the biggest transformation of them all, the one that begins with considering and acting on the almost limitless possibilities that lie ahead and that ends somewhere beyond the reach of the human imagination. So, when does that amazing future begin? Well, today is the day. My name is Phil Bowermaster, and with me in the virtual studio is my co-blogger, co-futurist, and co-host, Stephen Gordon. Hello, Stephen.
Hey, Phil. How are you?
Well, I'm super fantastic. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing okay, Phil. Doing well.
Here we are on a Thursday
hope all
evening.
is well around your house.
Oh, yeah, absolutely.
I'm sorry, say that again?
I just said here we are on a Thursday evening, and it's our first show of the week, so that's a little odd, a little funky, a little weird. And we've been messing with the listeners because we almost did a show on Tuesday, and then we did for a while have a show scheduled for last night, but now here it really is, appropriately enough, about dystopian visions of the future. Okay, so.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, well, we wanted to build anticipation for this show, Phil.
Right.
That's the whole point. That's the whole point.
Sometimes things just work out. Last week we were a little bit on hiatus. We did shorter shows than usual, and we had pre-recorded those well in advance because we were both sort of incommunicado for portions of last week, and so I think it's been about 2 weeks, Stephen, since we've actually done a show together.
That's right. It's been quite some time.
So here we are back, and of course our favorite topic, bringing us back together, gloom and doom. That's not usually our
no, that's not
our forte.
Yeah.
Not.
That's all right. It's always interesting to talk about. It's our 80-20 rule. 80% of the time we're optimists, but 20% of the times we have to at least consider the alternative. So
we look at those possibilities so that we can prevent them, so that we can keep them from happening. And of course we will balance this whole thing out because we're going to be back again tomorrow night with the best possible future. Tonight we're talking about the worst possible future, and tomorrow night we're going to give you the best possible future. So fear not. All right, so Stephen, we're doing this a little bit open-ended this evening, and I think we'll just toss it back and forth. We've probably each got great ideas for dystopian futures. Are you hearing music? I'm hearing music.
No, I'm not.
Interesting.
None over here.
Okay, fair enough. I think I was playing some music and didn't mean to be. A little jolt of a little just burst of hope here before we leap into the grimness that is dystopian futures. I thought one fun way to do this might be to start out by taking a few of our all-time favorite movie dystopias and saying which of those stacks up as the all-time clincher, the all-time worst vision of the future. And I'll throw one out there just to get it going because we've talked about it numerous times in the past, and that would be Soylent Green. That's an ecological thriller set in a world that's been damaged beyond repair. And spoiler alert, it turns out that people are eating other people. Is the kind of last resort of
Soylent Green is people.
Soylent Green being people. We still have that clip here someplace, don't we? We could play that if we wanted to. You gotta tell them! But thank you, Charlton Heston, for all those wonderful dystopic movie moments.
Truth.
Yes. You want to talk about an inconvenient truth. Okay, so Soylent Green is kind of the, it's climate change. Actually, in those days, they didn't talk about climate change as much. It was very hot in that world, but it was more just pollution had taken its toll, and we weren't producing food anymore. There was this made-up food called Soylent Green that was supposedly grown from algae from the seas, and people, the world was going to be finding its way back. But in the end, the big discovery is not even that. Even that good capability hasn't been achieved.
The Earth was completely ruined, and beyond the possibility of a recovery is basically what they were looking at.
So that's a pretty bleak. That's a pretty bleak scenario. Is that? Would you rank that as your all-time bleak movie future, or can you think of a bleaker one?
Well, yeah, I can think of a bleaker one. It would be easy to say Terminator, but let me throw out one that's a little bit more esoteric. One you may not have heard of, although you probably have heard of it, Phil. You've got serious geek cred, so I'm sure you've heard this story. I have no mouth and I must scream.
Oh, was that ever made into a movie?
You know what? I don't know if it was made into
Oh,
a
I hope
movie or
not.
not,
Oh,
but it was
that's horrible.
certainly, yeah, it was a movie. If it was made into a movie, that would, cause serious nightmares. Basically, it's about, it's like a Terminator future where, an AI basically takes over, but it's an AI with such intense hatred of humanity that the few humans that are left, it's at the, at the end, as the story begins, there's like 6 humans left, and the computer is keeping these humans alive in order to torture them.
Right.
That's how much he hates them. Won't allow them to die. And at one point, taking away the mouth of one of the characters, and so they can't scream or do anything. It's it just obviously a truly horrible scene.
That was written
Uh,
by Harlan Ellison, if I'm not mistaken.
I think that's right.
And we used his collection of stories, Dangerous Visions, as the name for our show a few months ago, if you'll recall. We talked about Dangerous Visions. I'm not sure, but I think that story is from one of the Dangerous Visions collections, as a matter of fact. So
And to
tying
bring
it
it
all
all
together.
all the way back around, apparently, and Harlan Ellison was credited at the end of Terminator for his ideas that may have led to that story. I think that was sort of an effort by the lawyers to keep from being sued.
The guy could come up with some bleak ideas about the future.
That's
for sure.
right. That's
Yeah.
right. And so
He had a real gift for that, or has. I don't know that he's passed away. I'm not sure. I haven't kept track of Harlan Ellison. He's an old guy if he's still around, and I hope he is. Harlan, hope you're still with us, and that you don't sue us because apparently you do that quite frequently. Now, that one's going to be hard to top. Okay, Stephen, I think you went right to the clincher on that. I'm going to try to think of some other dystopian visions of the future. Silly ones, Planet of the Apes, but the end of the second Planet of the Apes movie, Beneath the Planet of the Apes, where the vestiges of humanity, these mutants and these intelligent apes that have taken over, and the few remaining humans are all kind of duking it out, and then somebody triggers the doomsday bomb, and humanity is wiped out. I think that's about as bleak an ending to a story as you could ever hope for. I tend to go to the '70s Charlton Heston movies when I'm thinking about bleak futures. Although Charlton Heston is only briefly in Beneath the Planet of the Apes, as we have discussed on this program more times probably than we should.
there was a period of time in the 70s where it was presumed that all cinema had to be very serious, and
Yes.
it was the pre-Star Wars 1970s,
Yes.
and that there was a lot of very dystopic science fiction movies in that period of time.
And of course Omega Man, where
Yeah.
now this one, that is one where humanity is ultimately replaced by another species, kind of a lesser human zombie species. All the zombie apocalypse stories that we have now kind of hail back to that in some ways. Although actually, I guess they sort of hail back to Night of the Living Dead as well. Um, but that's a very bleak picture where something comes along and replaces us. I think the I Have No Mouth But I Must Scream is a good one, because that's like the ultimate bleak vision of what happens in a kind of a post-singularity world where we've lost control, and it's the antithesis of friendly artificial intelligence, right? That's a very bleak picture. That one I think is probably more possible. I'm not going to use the word likely, but more possible than say something like, the apes and the mutants are duking it out and they accidentally trigger the doomsday bomb, or the zombies take over. But something along the lines of Soylent Green could happen. I mean, we definitely could turn a corner and head down an ecological road that we didn't intend to. And some people believe we're there. They think that we've actually made that turn where climate change is concerned, where global warming is concerned, and that the damage may already be irreparable, and that we'll be living in a dystopia in the near future. That's not a mainstream view, and it seems to me there's a lot of interpretations on the latest IPCC report about how bad it's going to get, but nothing in their report is people are going to be widespread eating other people. I don't think that shows up in there so far, even as bleak as as that might get. But that is a possibility. Not only the climate change scenarios we have now, but just that something uh, horrible, unexpected could happen along those lines. We could have the solar flare that wipes out our whole electrical infrastructure on the planet and be knocked back into the what would that be? 19th century, I guess, right? With a
yeah.
21st century population and no real ability to figure out how to make life work in the 19th century. That would be a very painful future. I don't think that's the end of the world if that happens, but it's the end of the world for an awful lot of people, isn't it?
Yeah, there a huge portion of the population. We would not have the ability to feed our population,
Right.
and so a lot of people in the initial aftermath would pass away, and there would the Earth would obviously humanity would bounce back, but it would be obviously a much sobered up humanity. I mean, our goals would be much different after that, I would imagine. But that's pretty pessimistic, isn't it?
That is very pessimistic. What about something more grounded in geopolitics? Without the mutants and the apes, nuclear
Well,
war isn't
you can
completely off
have
the table yet, is it?
well, I think one future that we may already have in some ways is universal surveillance,
Hmm.
a top-down authoritative government system where everyone is watched and everyone is to some extent controlled by a central authority. Many believe that we're headed down that path, and that the NSA a few years ago, no one believed that the NSA was involved in domestic spying, and it
Well,
has
normal
admitted
people
that it
didn't
is
believe
now.
that, right? There were people
Yeah,
who would,
normal. Yeah, a lot of conspiracy theories.
yeah,
The kooks believed it.
yeah,
Now it
and they
turns
were
out the
right.
kooks were right.
Yeah,
Yeah, every now and then, it's like a stopped clock. Occasionally the kooks are right.
exactly.
And in this case they were. So that is hopefully we'll self-correct. Warrantless spying can't do it. You gotta have some sort of probable cause, reasonable suspicion, something before you start watching people. The problem is that the technology has made it very easy for a central intelligence agency it doesn't have to be the CIA, but any part of the alphabet soup could watch us very much easier now than it used to be. Who had a digital footprint 20 years ago? Very
Right.
few people. But now everybody does. So
Well, and
that's
it
the reason.
speaks to one of the all-time great dystopian visions of the future from George Orwell, 1984, which
Right. Big Brother.
at any point
Yeah.
in my life up until about 2 years ago, I'm thinking, I would have said, well, that one, we're clear. That's not going to
Yeah.
happen anyway. Certainly,
Right.
from the fall uh, of the Berlin Wall, right, from the end of the Cold War until a couple of years ago, or maybe even just a year or so ago, I would have said, well, that one's off the table. At least we don't have to worry about that one. But that one is back on the table, it seems to me.
Right.
And the interesting thing about it is it's a much more insidious version of it than what you see in Orwell. In Orwell,
Right.
everybody knows they're living in a dystopia. They just won't say it out loud because they use doublethink to tell themselves that they don't. Actually, maybe it's not that different. Come to think of it, maybe we're. I'm starting to as I talk through it, I'm thinking, well, maybe the similarities are closer than we think. I think we actually kind of live in an amalgam in some ways of 1984 and Brave New World by Aldous Huxley.
Or maybe the Lego World movie. Huh? The
I
Lego
haven't seen
movie.
that yet, so you'll have to
Oh man,
clarify.
I'm going to ruin it for you. But
No, it's okay. You can spoil the Lego movie. Go ahead.
okay, let me spoil it just a little bit. They have a song they sing within this dystopia. Everything is awesome, and they sing that, and the dictator, has free Taco Tuesday. Little things like that.
I don't
The
see how that
first,
could even be a dystopia. Okay,
Yeah,
excuse
well,
me.
you see, you got Taco Tuesday. You get to sing this great song about
Yeah.
how everything's awesome, and so you convince yourself that it's not so bad that you're being ruled by an iron fist. So oh
Yeah,
well.
and that's kind of Brave New World, right? Where,
Yeah,
um, I mean, they're not living in a police state necessarily, but they've kind of lost control over their own destiny because they've sort of given in to entertaining themselves. They've sort of amused themselves out of history, and I think we've got aspects of that future, and we've got worrying aspects of that future, worrying aspects of 1984 in the world we live in today. But I don't think those trends are irreversible, and I think to your point earlier that those are things that we will probably turn around. I always
yeah,
have a hard time predicting the future as well. This thing has started to go bad, therefore it will continue to go bad until it gets to the worst possible point it can be,
yeah.
and the world ends. Which is actually the problem with almost all dystopian visions of the future.
Yeah, at what point did people fail to stand up and say, this is we're going the wrong way. Maybe we should try to reform this. It seems
Right.
like that there what for whatever reason those mechanisms weren't in place in every single movie dystopia
Right,
that
right.
that
It's
you
like the
watch.
worse it gets, the less people respond in a dystopian
Yeah,
fiction. In the real world, eventually people respond. Eventually,
right,
now the thing is, we might do things that make it worse, and it snowballs depending on
right.
which bleak scenario you're working from.
Yeah, like
And so you actually could end
you
up
could
in
have
a.
a
Go ahead.
yeah. I was thinking like the French Revolution. You had a terrible situation
Right.
with a French monarchy, but then then it became a worse situation in response. So
Yes, you got the terror after that. You got Robespierre and exactly something like that could happen. You try to fix it and you make it worse. But then if we made it worse, we'd try to fix it again. The point is, it ain't over till it's over. When it comes to things like political systems, um, and I think the greater danger probably lies with huge unforeseen natural disasters, or if God forbid, an actual nuclear war, or even a small version of that were to occur. I think that there would be all kinds of repercussions from something like that. Something like the solar flare, big rock hits the planet, right? That could be really
yeah,
bad. Um, and those are the ones
even
that.
even a
Go ahead.
I was thinking maybe even a regional nuclear war
Yeah.
could we have kind of a fragile world economy.
Right.
Even a regional nuclear war that's where the death and destruction is limited to I don't know, India and Pakistan. They lob nukes at each other, and the death and destruction is limited to that area. It could still put the world in a worldwide depression for quite some time. The negative response to that. So you know um, yeah, so
That could be very
it's
bad. Yes.
it could be really really bad. That's
Yeah.
right.
The idea of things spiraling out of control, or something so overwhelming happening that we just don't have the capability to respond to it. Those are kind of uh, the two most dangerous categories. And I think the thing that we don't have the capability to respond to is the scariest of the two. Because again, I think we've got a lot of built-in, I'm not going to let this spiral out of control instincts that generally keep that from happening. That's why the world has not, up to this point, ended at our own hands. Which is not proof that it won't, but it's we should take what encouragement from that we can, and I do take some from that. We could have blown the world up back in the 60s or 70s, and we did not. So good, that's good.
Yeah.
Malthus was saying back in the whatever that was, 18th century, that we were going to starve ourselves to death, and we did not. So
Yeah.
there were 10,000 of us or fewer once in Africa, and
Yeah.
we came back. So I think we're pretty good at the comeback if there's enough runway for us to come back on. Give us enough runway, and we'll figure out how to come back. Well, I'm gonna try to top. I have no mouth and I must scream. Although that one is really really hard to top, because there you've got the artificial intelligence that has wiped out humanity, and the fact that there's a few people left being tortured makes really good fiction, but it's almost kind of an afterthought. It's like, well, okay, let them die. Jeez, just end it. Um, because humanity is over at that point.
Right.
I think that there's one that's almost as scary, which we talked about a while back, which is where we actually think we've achieved everything that we're trying to achieve as singularitarians or transhumanists, where we move into this next substrate and everybody uploads and suddenly all of human civilization is living in the other substrate, but we didn't take our actual subjective conscious experience along with us. And what's going on is that the universe is populated with a bunch of philosophical zombies. That one, to me, is just about as bad as the one you mentioned. Granted, it doesn't have the torture; no one's suffering, but the reason no one is suffering is because nobody's actually there. It's like we've been lost, but we've left this ghost or this shadow of ourselves behind. And I think that one is, eventually some actual intelligent beings would come along and find us. And I don't know if they'd ever be able to determine that we aren't really what we appeared to be or not. I think if they were smart enough, eventually they would. And that would be a very sad moment, realizing that this whole civilization didn't make it. Thought it made it and didn't. That's a scary thought, I think.
Well,
you and I having this conversation, right? 10,000 years from now, and neither one of us is actually there. To me.
Well,
that's a scary thing.
obviously that's pretty good. That's a pretty, in the sense of coming up with a horrible dystopic future. That I don't think you topped mine, but you're in the same ballpark.
Okay, so we got just a couple minutes left. Now, how do we prevent all these things from happening? I guess we need to.
I don't know, Google's motto, don't be evil.
Yeah.
It's I don't know that you necessarily can prevent them. You just have to be mindful of these potential futures. And if you see humanity going down one of these paths, you have to speak out. And
I think
there needs to be enough people that are aware of these possibilities that can speak out. So
yes, people need to be aware that these things can happen. And if they are, then some good things can start to happen. One is for the terrible thing that overwhelms us. Well, we just have to take appropriate measures. We have to put enough resilience into our infrastructure, into our processes, that we can recover from things. This is unfortunately not the conversation that we often have around climate change. We talk about preventing it, but it's like, okay, well, let's just for a moment entertain the idea that the people who say it's too late and it's going to happen are right. Okay, how do we recover? Do we have the do we have the wherewithal and the material and the plan to come back? Right. That's actually what we need to have. That one. Go ahead.
A lot of times, these people that have the idea that it's beyond we've already done so much damage. They're also the same ones that would tell you that humanity never does anything right.
Yeah. Well. Yeah. Yeah.
And so any efforts done on our parts to try to remediate the problem only will make it worse.
Well.
And so there's a subset. Now I'm not painting with a broad brush here. There's a subset of environmentalists that believe that the Earth would be better off with no people at all.
Sure.
And so whenever you start hearing really negative, you have to wonder, what is motivating this person who's speaking here? Are they part of that group?
Yeah. And I think the problem is those tendencies, which I agree are real, stand in the way of then creating the resilience that we need to,
right?
In case they're right. Which is what we also need to have in our electrical grid, just in case the sun does its trick or somebody launches one of those electrical, what do you call those?
EMP.
EMP devices.
Yeah, and it's the same thing. I mean, a solar flare causes an EMP just like a nuke would in the upper atmosphere. So it's the same disaster. One's artificial, one's man-made.
Yeah. And along those lines, we need. Oh, go ahead.
We don't have, apparently. The transformers and things like that we would need to repair our electrical grid, we don't have even the capability of manufacturing them in this country.
Right.
We'd have to order them from China or something.
So the first step would be, let's get capable of at least making that stuff, and
that's right.
And then start putting that infrastructure in place.
And maybe stockpiling some extras. I don't know. it puts some in underground, deep underground, and have them ready to be brought out and put on a train or something brought to key points to reboot ourselves in the event of a disaster.
Now, the big rock hitting us, we do have prevention being planned for that because we're going to start mining the asteroids pretty soon. We're going to develop all kinds of technology around moving rocks around in space. And I think that will have the benefit of also making it possible for us to protect ourselves from that one. So that one, I see at least a path where we can get to there.
Well, yeah, the better we get at spotting space rocks for profit, the better we are going to be to spot the one that's headed our direction, and maybe do something about it. So
the rest of it, I think you're right, Stephen. We've either got to don't be evil or don't create evil AIs.
That's right. We got to be real
Very
careful
important.
about it.
Don't you be evil, and don't create evil systems.
That's right.
And we will avoid these dystopian futures, and in fact enable the utopian futures that we're going to be talking about tomorrow. All right, Stephen, what's our music this evening?
Our music tonight is "See the Sun" by Black Lab.
See the Sun by Black Lab. Okay, I'm looking for. Actually, maybe you need to. Do you have access to that, Stephen?
I'm sorry, I logged out, Phil, so you could.
Let me see if I can locate that real fast. Should be right up near the top, right?
You know what? I probably should have warned you to reload.
Oh, well, let me try that.
Yeah. Any rate, I think we're experiencing a small dystopic future here, Phil.
Well, we often do. And I'm sorry, it's called See the Sun by Black Lab. Here we go. Thanks for putting that together, Stephen. Thank you all for being with us. We'll be back again tomorrow with an all-new show. And until next time, live to see it.
Go deep again. Will you stay by my side? Yeah. 'Cause if I feel this feeling, things won't ever be the same again. If planets collide, I won't mind. No, I'll be fine. 'Cause I can't see the sun anymore. I can't feel drugs anymore. See the sun anymore, but I don't mind. You're by my side. I feel fine. Are you my revelation? Are you the answer to my question? Have I wasted my time? Yeah. 'Cause if I feel this feeling, will you crawl out of your perfect skin and climb into mine? Will you shine? Will you be my light? 'Cause I can't see the sun anymore. I can't feel the ground anymore. I can't see the sun anymore, but I don't mind. You're by my side. I feel fine.